Saban consider returning to the National Football League, Coach?
That's my best Stephen A. right there.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much. I don't even know why Jimmy Sexton takes these phone calls at this point, because when you talk about having a career, being great, being dominant, being the best at something, Nick Saban has a chance over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to get his resume so far out in front of every college coach that has ever lived. And the money's not the issue. He's making $7-8 million a year now, which is equivalent to the top coaches in the NFL. But when I look at Nick Saban and what he is doing at Alabama, I can almost understand why sometimes he takes these calls, because now the reputation is starting to take a little bit of a hit. Because you would think if you got the #1 program in all the college land and you got the highest paid coordinators, that everything would be all good. But we heard some sound earlier this week where I was like, listen, this is validating everything I thought about people and coaches that work for Nick Saban. Listen to Lane Kiffin earlier this week.
Let's go back to the beginning there before we get to the happy part. I don't know that I would describe there was a happy moment. I don't recall a happy moment. I just recall that chewings.
All right, here on the second row.
I won't take that part of the process with me, though.
Why would he go to the NFL when he can treat coaches like this? How many coordinators do you know, and I don't count other people's money, that would leave $700,000 on the table to walk away from the #1 team in the land? When I heard rumors about Lane Kiffin just going down the road to another state in the SEC, to LSU, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Now it's very obvious that this is what it's like to work for Nick Saban, which is why it didn't work in the NFL, because of how he treats people that work for him and the players that play for him. Is he dominant? Yes. Great? Yes. But you heard from Lane Kiffin, it ain't all that great to be in the trenches with Nick Saban, and that's why I would never think about going back to the NFL.
Okay, I wouldn't either if I were Nick Saban. Nick Saban shouldn't worry about the NFL. He shouldn't want to go to the NFL. He should solidify his position as the greatest college football coach of all time. He should continue to rack up national championships over a process, due to a process that's well in place at this point. He's a process guy. He preaches the process. I believe in the idea of process. Write it out. You're 65. Ride out the process and reap the rewards. But see, the thing is, I believe Nick wants to go back to the NFL. You said if I was Jimmy Sexton, I wouldn't take these calls. Well, the flaw in your logic is that you assume that Jimmy Sexton is only receiving calls. Jimmy Sexton is placing calls. Where there is smoke, there is fire. We have seen reports. Do you think a guy that is annually mentioned in job hunts from the Texas Longhorns to the New York Giants is really just sitting back and letting them all be fielded? Now, don't get me wrong. If anybody's fielding job offers, I'm sure it's Nick Saban. But this much smoke it requires a two-way relationship. It requires teams and franchises thinking there's a chance Nick would leave the preeminent program in college football. Now, why would they think that? Why would they think there's a chance to get Nick Saban? Because he has showed them, both back channel and with his history, he's perfectly happy to go to try and put that process in place once again. Nick is feeding this. Nick is allowing this. Nick is instigating this idea. Now, does he want to go? If it was 10 years ago, I would say yes. He would entertain something like the Los Angeles Rams, or maybe even 5 years ago, where he'd have time to get his process in place. I believe he shouldn't go. I believe he wants to go. And third, he won't go, though, because he is 65, and there's no point trying to reestablish the process in the pros, where really it takes more than the 2 to 3 years owners are willing to give you.
Well, I can speak to this, because I mentioned yesterday on Twitter that I have a book coming out called Likeably Arrogant, in stores in March. Not really, but I said it. Guys that have huge egos love the attention, and they love to stand up there. As much as Nick Saban acts like he doesn't like to deal with the media and do the press conferences, he really loves it. Do you know who Nick Saban told me that he goes secretly to rock and roll concerts with? Bon Jovi, Rolling Stones, things of that nature. When we did First Take in July, do you know who he rolls with? Bill Belichick. Can you imagine those two rolling in, lights come down at Bon Jovi? It happens, and it happens. These two guys love the attention. You might be onto something. You might be onto something that Nick Saban is feeding the fire. But to me, there's no smoke. Because why in the world would you leave a college, a program that is probably a better situation financially, facilities, everything that it entails,
I'll give you the reason
probably
why.
28 or 32 of
I'll give you the reason why. And
franchises.
it starts with this. You're not Nick Saban. So no matter how many times you talk to him, you're not in his head, and you can't know how he feels. You'd be right. If I were you, I'd do the same. There is no chance I'd leave. But what we've seen is these kind of guys, like Bill Parcells fielding calls or placing calls the week his team is in a Super Bowl, wanting to prove their greatness. He rolls with Bill Belichick, does he?
Totally.
Well, he wants to be the greatest football coach of all time. No college qualifier. He doesn't want to go to that concert with Bill Belichick and say, he's the greatest coach. I'm the greatest college football coach. He doesn't want that.
He doesn't have time.
And by the way, he has shown you, this isn't just Will Cain guessing, he has shown you throughout his history a willingness to leave. Do I think he will? No. Do I think he wants to? Yes.
I kind of agree with you. I think he's such a competitor that I feel like he wants to go back to the NFL and prove himself, even though the first
Prove he's not 5-17.
Exactly.
15-17.
Exactly. All right, real quick. They play Washington tomorrow, 3 p.m. Who's going to win? Real quick.
Oh, Bama?
Right,
And
right.
Big,
okay,
big,
yeah,
big,
we
big.
all agree. Okay, Bama. And then after that, at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we've got Urban Meyer and number 3 Ohio State, who will take on Dabo Swinney and number 2 Clemson in the other college football semifinals matchup, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Now, the last time these two met on the field was January 2014. It was the Tigers that prevailed 40-35 in a shootout. But guys, which coach do you want moving forward, Dabo or Urban?
The big thing is players, coaches right now. A Nick Saban, if a Nick Saban started now, would he be as successful in college as Nick Saban is? I would say probably not, because players are changing and what you expect out of a coach is changing. I'm going to go with Dabo Swinney. And there's a lot of Clemson fans out there that I've kind of had a love-hate relationship with this year, because they have a lot of things that Dabo encourages at Clemson to get everybody involved. The fans, the players, the families, all of that. But what I know is when I watch Dabo Swinney, I love energy guys. I love guys that when I look at them, I know they're all in and they're excited to be there. And there is nobody walking the sidelines today in college football that shows me that they want to be there more than Dabo Swinney. And if I'm a player, I want a head coach like that.
So you want to have a good time. You want to have a party. You want to have a coach that makes you feel good. That's good.
And make it to the playoffs, too.
No. That's where I start winning. I want to win. I want to win. So I want Urban Meyer. Undefeated at Utah, 2 national championships at Florida, 5 losses in 5 seasons at Ohio State. This is the answer. Any other answer is an answer that focuses on the things you just gave us. You can't talk about winning and come at any other answer than Urban Meyer. Coaches prove their worth when they do it in different situations with different teams. Urban Meyer doing it with 3 different programs, different quarterbacks. I think Dabo's great. I think Dabo's also won with 2 quarterbacks, Taj Boyd and Deshaun Watson. I'd like to see him do it with a greater sample size of great players, the way Urban Meyer has. If you want to win, your answer has to be Urban Meyer. There simply isn't another.
I never understood how people like you look at a situation and expect Dabo Swinney to have a 15-year resume when he hasn't been there for 15 years. Urban Meyer's coached a lot longer. He's older. He's been there. You give Dabo the same amount of time. Now, also, Urban Meyer's had really good opportunities. Dabo Swinney has turned a okay program at Clemson into an ACC power.
You're not wrong. I'm giving Urban Meyer credit for a longer sample size, more years. You're not wrong. It just makes you a bad bettor. You bet on the guy with the shorter amount of evidence.
I was a horrible bet, which is why I don't play anymore.
I take the guy with 15 years of evidence, 3 different teams, winning with all of them. You're right. I get more on my resume. I have more evidence. Thus, my bet is insurmountably better than yours.
You love, I think you're best friends with Adnan Burke, because you love to reference movies. Thing is, he references them correctly. You, incorrectly. But I'm going to give you one, and I think you'll remember this. Do you remember in Jerry Maguire at the end when they hugged and the guy said, hey, how come you and I don't do that? Did you just see the video that we were running while I was talking? Who did you see giving the hugs, the love, the pats on the back? It wasn't Urban Meyer.
Let me tell you something. I'm very comfortable with the terms of this debate. You get hugs and cheerleading, I take W's. We'll just let it rest at that.
Wow. Wow. So that means nothing to you?
If you want a hug, go with Coach. If you want to win, go with Will and Urban Meyer.
All right, predictions. So since you think Urban's going to walk away with this one.
No, now see, that's going to, no.
Oh.
Now, see, because I think Clemson's going to win the game.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's not
That's
simply
kind of a little oxymoronic.
No,
That's
it's
a
not,
paradox.
because it's not simply two coaches. The question was, which coach do I want going forward? My answer was Urban. Who do I think is going to win this game is a different
Okay.
coach, Prim, and I believe in Deshaun Watson. I believe Deshaun Watson, by the way, from a passing standpoint, every bit as good as he was last year. He's not running for as much as he did last year. He's about half in his totals and yards and touchdowns. I think he's a wrinkle. That particular part of his game, the running game, is a wrinkle that Ohio State better be ready for. I take Deshaun Watson. I take Clemson.
Real quick, it's going to be Clemson. Ohio State's had way too many games this year where they haven't been consistent offensively. That's going to hurt them.
Well, listen, Dabo is certainly no stranger to the college football playoff. He's making his second straight appearance, but does he have any changes in mind?
I've lived it, I've played it, I've coached it, and I think we got it right. But there's always going to be debate. You go to 8 teams, well, the 9th, 10th team, that's never going to change.